Alright, so the boat's back from Eagle Mountain Lake, and what we're going to do now is start getting the floor prepared so that over Christmas break when I get out there, I have some more usable space, can take some more people out with me, and just be a little bit more comfortable with the boat. So I'm going to build out the two rear berths. They're both like quarter-size berths, or actually a little bit smaller than that, but anyway, I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to change up the way this is set up just a little bit. But anyway, we'll get into that here shortly. So I'm going to get these two built out, and then also get this V-berth completely built out. I'm also, in every one of these berths, going to have multiple compartments, just with a pickup lid with one single hole in the middle to grab it, and then a lip all the way around. So.
I'm Anna, and this is Ignacio. We, along with our daughter Elena and our pup Bay, are the new salt selling crew. We are DIYers with a growing appetite for big adventure. Our goal is to DIY and trade our way up to a blue water-worthy boat and set sail on an adventure by sea. We are new to selling and plan to develop our selling skills along the way. Subscribe to stay up to date with our progress and adventures.
Okay, so I'm going to attach a string from the center of the mast support all the way to the center of the bow. I'm going to mark the string every 6 inches, and then using a square and a tape measure, I'm going to measure the distance between the string and the hull all the way down for the entire V-berth. Another thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to need to go in the boat and grind off where the old V-berth was attached. Whoever cut it last just did a rough cut. There's still like an edge all the way around, so I gotta go in and grind all that off. But we'll get these cut, kind of test fit them, make sure we're close, and then go ahead and grind all that and clean the inside of the boat up. Alright, this is prepped and all smooth, ready for the first layer of glass. So on second thought, I think I am going to redo the way I'm cutting these this V-berth up. I think I'm going to do it in 3 pieces. One being just this area from midpoint of this forward, one being this area I'm sitting in, and then one being this area here where the battery and stuff is going to be. Alright, so this will give me a great template for that V-berth. As you can see, I mean, it's a fairly nice smooth curvature the way the boat's set up. So this is the front. It's nice round smooth transition corners. I'm sure there's some imperfections in it, but to the naked eye it looks fine and pretty damn symmetrical. So what to do, I'm going to put it on the workbench and we'll see what we're going to do next. it's been some time since I've worked on the boat. Been so focused on the autopilot project, I've kind of neglected to continue finishing the interior of the boat and fixing all the things that need to be fixed. Anyway, what I'm going to try to do today is build the bulkhead that goes right at the front of the cockpit. So I noticed this when I first got the boat, but I didn't think it was as big of an issue as it actually is. So what appears to have happened is somebody removed the bulkhead that sits at the front of the cockpit here on the inside, and what that's allowed to happen is that it's allowed the front of the cockpit to kind of sag down a little bit, and you'll see that right here around the tube. You see there's some cracks have developed that I ended up putting some 5200 on just to temporarily patch. But also this all like slopes down, so what happens is a bunch of water gets caught here and actually ends up filling up high enough where these holes where the bulkhead used to be mounted to actually leak into the cabin, and then also all around this guide tube. You can actually see the guide tube's up about a 1/4 inch right here in the middle, and then probably an inch too low over here. So basically this whole cockpit sagged down onto the keel trunk right here. So what I need to do is get some bottle jacks and jack up the cockpit back to where the floor up here in the front is level, and basically get rid of the sag, and then I will build a bulkhead that fits there, and then I can re-bolt it where it was originally bolted. Alright, so before I get to jacking this up, I'll show you guys what it looks like. So I plan on lifting here, so this is actually it's got some core right here, so it has a decent amount of strength, and there's a nice hard rolled edge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a bottle jack on this stringer, and with a 2x6 I'm going to distribute the load and jack up on both sides here. And then here's where you can see I use some milk jug caps and 5200 them in order to stop that from leaking. But right here is the back part of the keel trunk that the actual cockpit is now resting on. So it should be resting on a bulkhead that distributes the load between the stringers, the trunk, or the stringers and the trunk, and then it's bolted here. And like I said, I'll probably tab it in all the way around. There we can see I've removed the this little pad for the keel, and you can see how bowed it is, so I need to strengthen that or replace it. Anyway, so now we'll try to remove these 2 screws and then jack up the cockpit again. That bolt is bent, so I'm not sure how I'm going to get in there to remove that from down here, but that's the next task. Or I can just grind the head of that bolt off and replace it, which is probably what I'll end up doing. Alright, that's it. Alright, so I've got this jacked up just a little bit. You can see that there's a gap now between the keel trunk and the cockpit bottom. I'm not sure how long the cockpit's been sitting like that with all that weight on there, basically as long as this bulkhead's been removed. So it's not just going to fall right back to where it needs to be. It'll be something that kind of happens over time, but I may be able to expedite that by pulling it back down with some bolts. As you can see, my level is showing level on the cockpit seating, and then the gap is actually quite large. So that means that this is sagged, and now the more I look at it, I also found where somebody had made repairs here. I don't see one on this side, but basically just from cracking and sagging of the cockpit over the years. So, all right, so I'm going to set this up, and I'm going to trace it with my short pencil around the companionway opening, and then we'll go trim it. All right, so I screwed up, and this 2x6 is too far forward. It's in the plane of the new bulkhead. So I'm going to measure from the stringer up and make me a mark at a known distance, and then remove the jack, scoot it back a little bit, and raise it back up to that same dimension. There's not really a hard edge for me to measure to, which is why I've just decided to scribe a line on here. So I scribed me a vertical line in plane with the outside of this stringer, just so I'm not measuring something crooked. And then I'll just pick 17 inches here. Alright, it doesn't necessarily matter what dimension it is, just as long as I get back to the same spot. Alright, it's 17. Alright, so now I'll relax this, scoot it back a little bit, and lift it back up. What I'm going to do now before I remove it is I'm going to mark where the cockpit sits behind this, so I know where I can drill some holes for spinnaker pole and whatnot. So, alright, so the board is all trimmed and cut. I've made this significantly bigger so that there's plenty of space there. When I go to bolt the cockpit sole back to the keel trunk, I'll make sure that it pulls all the way back down. Cut these with a hole saw at a slight angle so that they're not basically fighting the whatever I have slid through there. So, see here. That'll give me somewhere to store, and I may have to put like a little lanyard or something to keep these from popping out, but that and my boat hook will be able to be stored there nice and neat without just being thrown across the floor. Keeps it from getting damaged with people walking in and out of here as well, or crawling in and out of here. Alright, so this bulkhead's pretty much ready. It just needs to be sanded, and then I can coat it in epoxy and be ready to go. So I've doubled up two 2-inch by 20-inch pieces over this companionway, so that now if anybody steps on this, it's only going to deflect a very, very short distance. It won't crack like this again, so now I can repair this and not really worry about it happening again. Eventually I'll probably add some sort of step here, because this is a little bit of a steep step, especially if Bay's out with us, so she can go in and out without having to try to jump over all this stuff. So, alright, so I'm working on the B berth now. I've got my template marked out. I've got a little drawing of the decking I need to cut out, so I'm going to hit 2 more chalk lines, and then we should be able to cut it out and go test fit it. Alright, so I've got all the decking cut for all the berths in the boat. I've got the entire V berth done and both quarter berths. It's all just rough cut. It's just sitting on here right now. But the next step is to cut some bulkheads. And these bulkheads are going to be used to, 1, support this for when somebody sits or lays on it, and 2, it's going to kind of divide the compartments. So I'm going to have 2 compartments on the starboard side and then 1 compartment on the port side. Anything past the cockpit bulkhead is going to be filled with foam. So I'll drill and use a hole saw to drill a hole in the decking, pour in some sort of expanding foam, and then just let it ooze out of the hole. And also the back end of these is open. So if any of you have experienced anything like that, shoot it in the comments below and I'll check it out. Also, I'm going to do 4 more compartments in the front, so there'll be 5 compartments total in the V berth. There'll be 1 compartment here, just for general storage. There'll be a big compartment here in the middle, and I'm going to put 2 deep cycle batteries there. And then there'll be kind of like an oblong compartment on either side, just to the outboard of the bulkhead. So it'll be the compartment will start more on the back end, but basically there's a bulkhead here and 1 here. Everything in the middle is going to be for my batteries. There'll be other storage in there, maybe the charge control and everything will mount on the inside of these the stringers that I've fabricated in here. But the rest of them will just be for general storage. And then the one I made in the very front back in December, that will be the anchor locker. And this cockpit bulkhead has dried. I oversized these 4 holes and filled them with epoxy, but some of the epoxy kind of oozed out of the bottom, so it's not completely full. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it. I need to take 3/8 of an inch off for the thickness of this decking, because I sized it to fit on these stringers, but now the stringers effectively moved up with this decking. So I'm going to trim that, re-epoxy the place I trimmed, and then also continue to fill in where those 4 holes are. So everything's marked out. I got a 10 by 12, an 18 by 24, and then a 10 by 12 over here. So I'm going to get my hole saw to cut the center hole, and then my multi-tool to start it, and then with a jigsaw follow around on all 3, and then we'll move on to the next one. So the second piece for the V-berth is complete now. So I got 2 small storage compartments and then 1 large one for the batteries. And here is the bulkhead. So it's all been coated in epoxy. All these holes were oversized and then filled with epoxy and then re-drilled, so that even if there is any leakage, the wood will not be exposed to directly to that water. So this bulkhead rests on these 2 stringers to support the weight of the cockpit. So now the cockpit floor is much more level. Then on the V-berth, so we've got 1 general storage here. I just have some towels and some more tools and a first aid kit in there right now. And then 2 small compartments, 1 here and 1 over here, which for right now there's a fire extinguisher in there, which is just for transport. I am going to eventually mount it on this piece here. So my battery box, don't mind these wires, these are for the autopilot. Eventually they'll be routed through through here. So this will be the battery box. I'm going to build a fiberglass frame to support 2 deep cycle batteries in here. I'll probably mount like a charge controller, somewhere where it's accessible, where I can run all my wiring. Maybe on this bulkhead here, I'm not sure. And then also all my autopilot electronics will be mounted in here. And then further forward is the anchor locker, and this one I made much longer ago, and it still needs some cleanup. I have some, you can see some fiberglass here that I used to support the backing. So I guess that's really about it on the interiors right now. So like I said, everything's going to get tabbed in. I'm going to sand everything smooth, get it ready for paint. I'm going to fill in all these screw holes, which they already have some epoxy in them, but using some fairing compound, I'll fill them in, sand everything nice, and then we should be able to sand the rest of the interior and paint it. I mean, that's a long-term goal. I want to get the exterior of the boat good first, so I'll probably tab all this in to get it all secured, build my supports, and then probably leave the interior looking about the way it is for a good while, until I get the exterior of the boat where I want it. By the way, guys, any of these 3D printed projects, like I have the masthead finished now. If you're interested in them, just shoot us an email. I'm adding our email address in the description below now. So if you see something you want, we'll be selling them. So right now we're doing $50 a piece on the mastheads. That includes shipping and all fees. So if you're interested, let us know. I'll send you a drawing and you can compare it to your mast. If I need to make a minor tweak, I'm willing to do that for you. So yeah. Anyway, here's one last shot of the interior. Anyway, that about wraps up all this, the interior project for right now. I'm hopping back on the autopilot project. I've got it pretty much ready for testing. You saw in a previous episode we went out to the lake and tested the anemometer portion, but now the actual autopilot portion is ready to be tested. So you'll be seeing that come up here pretty soon. I'm going to test it with a single battery and just do an analysis, see how much power it's actually drawing over time. And that'll kind of tell me what kind of batteries I need. I'm kind of thinking lithium just because it'd be cool, but I don't necessarily need to spend that much if it's not required. I can get 2 really nice new deep cycle batteries for $110 a piece, and then 250-watt solar panels, and that should be enough to keep it maintained. If the autopilot system draws more than I'm anticipating, I may design some sort of tow behind project, some tow behind generator project. Probably 3D print a prop and then use a permanent magnet motor to power, and I'll have to find some sort of charge controller for that. But anyway, that may be a future episode. And something else I'm actually thinking about doing here pretty soon is 3D printing some clutches. So the little jam cleats I have up here work okay, but I don't really like the way they're laid out. It'd be nice to get some clutches and then put my current winches up on the cabin top and then buy some self-tailing winches for the jib sheets.
If you enjoy our videos, please like, subscribe, and share them with your friends.